Well, welcome everybody. It's great to welcome you to this afternoon where where Freya and I are going to be having a wonderful extended conversation with two fantastic guests, Amjad and Eitan from the UAE. I won't say much more by way of introduction because we're going to start off by asking them to introduce themselves. So I might start with you, Amjad. Tell us about yourself. How have you got to be here, sitting in Sydney in 2024, and where are you from, and how have you come to be here?
Yeah, tell them, Eitan.
The story of how we got here?
You're the best in this.
Well, you know what? My greatest achievement in life is that I was born in Israel. But that's thanks to my parents. And from Israel, I went to South Africa. And from South Africa, I traveled the world. And I actually lived here in Australia very proudly for 5 years or so. And then I moved to the front lines of change in Dubai. And I guess fast forward, the specific reason as to why Amjad and I are sitting here is because I had the privilege of meeting Amjad at the Israeli embassy in Abu Dhabi at a Holocaust memorial event. And there were many dignitaries there. And it was organized with Zikaron Basalon, which in Hebrew means remembering in the lounge, remembering the Holocaust. And a Holocaust survivor came to Abu Dhabi. And at the end of the event, I witnessed Amjad really very warmly, very beautifully welcome this Holocaust survivor and tell this Holocaust survivor that they're welcome to return. And that is, by the way, true Emirati hospitality. But I really understood there and then that Amjad is what we call in Yiddish a mensch, which is a really good person with a really big heart. And Amjad
He had to define that.
And Amjad came to me. And he said to me, "Hey, Eitan, I see the rise of anti-Semitism in Australia. What can we do?" And 2-3 months later, I was in Australia and I was speaking to my sister who was distressed because my niece is at Canberra University and facing a lot of challenges there. And all the dots connected. And I said, "Amjad, we're going to do this mission, shoulder to shoulder. We're going to show Arab and Jewish solidarity. And now we're shoulder to shoulder with you as well, with Christian solidarity as well." And that's what brings us to this pivotal moment.
That is fantastic. So, Amjad, you're Arab, you're Muslim.
Born and raised in UAE, and a Muslim Arab, and a political strategist, researcher, and an author. I've been quite active on the peace and normalization of the State of Israel. Took the first delegation from UAE and Bahrain as a young youth delegation, non-officials, to Israel, the State of Israel, where it was people-to-people conversation. And we took the first young delegation there in COVID-19, in fact, right after the normalization. And at that stage, it was a very challenging time, and we did so. And we went to various places in Israel, stayed in King David's Hotel. It was an amazing one, and then other places. And since then, and before that and after that, believing in normalization with the State of Israel and the fact that the solution for the Middle East is that Israel is part of the past, part of the present, part of the future of the Middle East, and Israel is there to stay. Moving on to the point of when the 7th of October atrocities and massacre, genocide that happened, and the duty as a human being that we had to experience is in that when the Holocaust happened, you and I, we were not there. But we read in the books and we see the pictures and images and some rare videos at that stage and that point, or explainers that tells us when the Holocaust happened, there are people who celebrated and the people who glorified it. And there are people who participated in it. And there are people, even though they were on a weak side, they tried to help out. And that's why some people survived the Holocaust. We were not there. We couldn't do nothing. We can just read about it, and that's about it. A lot of you are here because of your grandparents made it out. But when the 7th of October happened, we are here. And it's exactly what happened on the Holocaust. But this time, the choice is yours. Do you participate in it? Do you glorify it? Do you support it? Or are you going to be the person who stands with a woman where her baby is 8 months old, did not participate in any battle whatsoever? He probably doesn't know what's IDF, what's Israel, whatever anything is. 8 months old. Are you going to stand with her baby? Or are you going to stand with the person who kidnapped her? The choice is yours. History will recall this moment. And everyone who stands on this side of the history. As simple as that. And as much as we have Holocaust deniers up to this stage, 2024, as we're speaking right now, you still have 7th of October deniers of what happened and all this thing. Do not be surprised. Since the Holocaust up to this stage, there is academics up to this stage. They write book denying what happened in the Holocaust. Yes, those psychopaths do exist. Unfortunately, they should be in the hospital. They're on the street. I am proud to be from my country, UAE. And UAE is a country where Muslim Brotherhood is banned. It's a country with zero tolerance for anti-Semitism. Zero tolerance, again, for anti-Semitism. Muslim Brotherhood is banned. And Muslim Brotherhood, Hamas is the armed forces of it in Gaza. We banned it there and then, before this, after this. Zero tolerance for anti-Semitism. And I don't want to monologue long with this, but I'll finish with this, and I'll return to your question. Probably you will regret asking me anymore. I strongly believe, and I think Itan, you saw this in Dubai, living in Dubai. In my country, as an Emirati citizen, I believe anti-Semitism is not an opinion, it's a crime. And that's how it should be treated.
That's brilliant. Let's zoom out a little bit. How do you see this current
You like how she did
conflict?
zoom out? Like as you
Zoom out, literally zoom out.
I was going to, just before we zoomed out, I was going to dig in.
Zoom back in.
Zoom back in
Zooming
and zoom out. Well, no, you mentioned the Muslim Brotherhood. Now, can you just tell us who they are? Because I suspect lots of people don't really know. Are they just like a fraternity in Cairo University who get wasted and pick up girls, or what is the Muslim Brotherhood?
Well, it's really hard to dig into it because it's just quite long, but short story, Muslim Brotherhoods are the radical Islamists, where Al-Qaeda represent that ideology. That's where they got their manifest. Hamas got their manifest, ISIS got their manifest, and also Hizb ut-Tahrir, which exists and is permitted to practice everything in Australia. Also, they have the manifest. So they all had the same manifest, but here they're called activists. And in Afghanistan, they're called terrorists. So the choice is yours. That's in a very simple term.
Although I think it's very important to make it very clear to the audience that in the State of Israel, that in the United Arab Emirates, and that in Australia, the Muslim Brotherhood umbrella, of which Hamas and Hezbollah and their armed forces belong to, are all banned terrorist organizations. That is a shared principle between the three countries.
Awesome. Okay, Freya, zoom us out.
So if we zoom out again and we think about this conflict, how do you see this conflict? How do you frame it? A lot of people here will say Israel and Hamas. Is it a clash of civilizations? Is it a Sunni Shia divide? Is it Iranian expansionism? How do you see this conflict?
Good question. It's a clash of darkness and light. It's a clashness of people who glorify life and people who glorify death. People who celebrate death and people who celebrate life. And the best way to, since you like zoom in and zoom out, zoom in to the moment where Israel eliminated Yahya Sinwar. Yahya Sinwar, that terrorist, he kidnapped the children, he planned it, he killed so many of the Israelis. He's a reason why so many of the women, they were raped and some still do, on those dark tunnels as we speak. He's the reason why Baby Kafir, we don't know where he is right now. He's the reason why so many children are orphans at this stage, and so on. When Israel eliminated him, the moment he died, they put him in a bag, carried him on a shoulder. That's the story. That's a nation you respect with morals and values. Wait, postpone, keep that picture in your mind. If Yahya Sinwar did this in Iraq, he will be treated like Saddam Hussein, executed there and then be stabbed on. If he was in Libya, you saw what happened in Gaddafi. They dragged him in the street and they did a lot of bad things to him. But the Israeli Jewish values here, if the best possible to put it, and the morals and the values here are very high. They literally put him in the bag and that's it. That's a nation that respects death or life. That's a nation wants to live and has respect whatsoever. The morals do not change. That's a nation you would like to respect. And so yeah, it's a clash, yet it always existed through civilization. There hasn't been a time where the civilization just was like just thriving. When it thrived, there is always good and bad. And I think definitely the bad side, or the good side, let's say, the good side is not the one that kidnaps a baby from his mom.
Yeah.
So some people would say, well, you know, it's really a battle over land in Israel. So the Israelis, the Jews are the colonizers who came in and dispossessed the poor Palestinians who were there before the Nakba of 1948. And this resistance is justified. What's happened in October 7? I mean, I was listening to an Australian on social media going, the only thing that surprises me is October 7 didn't happen sooner.
They live 14 hours away from Middle East, that's why.
Yes. Well, okay, so is it about what would you say to someone who said that in Australia? And maybe you've had these conversations with them or said it online?
Yes, I had so many conversations with a lot of leftists, let's say, in Australia and on the west side of Sydney and online too. And as me and Itan were discussing on a previous occasion, the issue is that a lot of them, they postponed into history. And in history, if an event occurs right now outside this house of yours, or this place where we are, how we witness it would be very different than the person who is in the car if he has an accident. So how we report the accident will be very different from the perspective of a person driving the car, and also how the police will report it will be different to both of us. So history will always have two perspectives, two points of view. But where do we become civilized is where we're trying to find a common ground to overcome the challenges by a dialogue rather than a violence. There is not about right or wrong. But then we go back, if we're going to speak politically, Israel has put their hands for peace, and so did the other side of the Palestinians when it comes to the Oslo Accords and others. But where was the problem? The problem, the radical side of the Palestinian elite itself, they were always tend this peaceful opportunity to a bad result, the least I can say, or they don't miss opportunity to miss an opportunity when it comes for peace. And Israel got out of Gaza. And then we had, let's call it a mini state of the Palestinian ruling over Gaza. And then we had the 7th of October. So if that's one of the two state solution result of what happens there. So yes, you can resist, but yes, also you can be wise as the Japanese with the American. And Japanese and the Americans, they were enemies of each other. American even used the nuclear against the Japanese. We're not comparing here, but we're just giving worse example. And the worst example here is they use the nuclear. Japanese, they could have said resistance forever and all these things, or be wise and choose peace. They chose peace. Today, Japan invades the United States of America through its technology, and Japan is biggest American alliances of Japan is protected from North Korea and other countries. These guys from enemy to a cooperative friends that they support each other whatsoever. And if it's about ethno-religion stuff, so we did the Irish and the Brits. They had issues. They had land issues, and they had the Orthodox and it was the Catholics and the Protestants.
Yep.
The Catholics and the Protestants. So that's a religion problem. And also it was a land. They literally had dispute over a road up to the until they reached Good Friday. And after they reached Good Friday, they still had issues after that, and they solved it. Once there is a faith and a will to go forward, they can do so. And I can give you a very good example actually about this. It's a choice of understanding, and the best choice of that. After the independence of Israel, 9 months after that, whose independence was it? Pakistan. Pakistan independence is exactly, we're just comparing again for the sake of the argument, and I'm not saying the same story. For the sake of the argument, 9 months after Israel declared its independence, Pakistan did. Why did Pakistan declare its independence? It was part of India. They called it because of their ethnicity and religion. Ethno-religion. Because they think they're different. They have 1,000 years of history here, and they're very different religiously and ethnically from India, even though they were part of India. But they had a right in this. They could approve it, and they did so, and they went into the United Nations. Both Israel and Pakistan are recognized by the United Nations for the same reason.
I have a question. Can I ask a question then?
Yeah. You can stop me anytime. I can monologue forever.
I can, and I will. We will. If we zoom out even further, for 1,400 years, the Sunni and the Shia have been fighting, and
have they?
Well, haven't they? Okay, well, educate us. That would be great. Maybe, 1,380. The point I'm making is peace is very hard. And even in Pakistan and India, they killed 1 million people at partition. 1 million people died.
Oh, they haven't made peace up to this night, up to this point?
They're still fighting.
The Kashmir issue up to this night is not solved.
And there's still
Algeria and Morocco, they haven't solved the Sahara, which is Moroccan Sahara.
Correct.
Algeria is trying to occupy it or support certain militias and so on.
Yeah, so
the Turkish and the Syrian, they still have disputes over the lands. Iran is occupying 3 of the UAE's island too.
Correct.
So we have all these things, but Israel is the only case.
Well, that's right. So I guess where I was going with that is, what makes you optimistic that there could be peace between Jews and Muslims? But what makes you optimistic or gives you hope? Maybe is the better way to put it.
Tell them.
Well, I'll offer you a particular unique vantage point which I have, because I'm a proud Australian, I'm a proud Israeli, I'm also a proud resident of Dubai, where I call home. And in the United Arab Emirates, you have a Ministry of Tolerance which oversees 220 cultures, where anti-Semitism isn't an opinion, it's a crime. So I live safely as a Jew in Dubai under the shaded palm of the Abraham Accords and the auspices of the Ministry of Tolerance. We've been discussing about forces which are actually standing against progress, but there are forces which are working towards progress. And the Abraham Accords is something that has come to life, it's come to fruition, and I'm the embodiment of that because I live in Dubai. And beyond that, it's creating trade relations, it's creating cultural relations. Actually, Israel is now exceeding $3 billion in trade before defense and goods. If you look at the relationship between Australia and the UAE, which is the UAE is Australia's largest trading partner, you have over $20 billion in investments, over $9 billion in trade. There are CEPA agreements coming into place between Australia and the UAE. There's, I think in mid-25, there is already one in place between the UAE and Israel since last year, April, I believe. So that is the answer. The answer is in growing the Abraham Accords. And as a Jewish person, the answer and the message that I have to Australians is this. I live safely under this shaded palm. Whilst some countries might not need to join the Abraham Accords, I'm asking on the audience to join the value systems of the Abraham Accords. Because this shaded palm and these values of peace, unity, tolerance, kinship should be spreading all over the world. And that is the example that Amjad and I are presenting to Australians. We are introducing a new narrative for everyone's consideration.
That's so brilliant. I mean, I've heard people say that they feel safer as a Jew in the UAE than they do on the streets of Sydney when we have pro-Hamas, pro-Hezbollah protests taking to our streets every single week. So I guess my question is, in a weird way, are some countries in the Middle East, like the UAE, now better at fighting Islamic extremism than Australia? Are we being left behind in this? And what is your message to Australian political leadership right now?
Well, I mean,
good luck with that.
Well, I will start it off and I'll maybe let you carry it on. But I was in Israel on October 7th with my family. I was there under that bombardment. And I first evacuated my family and then, under some stress, evacuated myself, where I returned to Dubai, where I knew my family and I would be safe. It was only on the 9th of October, 2 days later, that from the television screen, I see people marching outside the Opera House saying, "Gas the Jews." And I'm seeing the rise of anti-Semitism since then. I'm seeing hate speech. I'm seeing the desecration of cemeteries. I'm seeing the desecration of synagogues. I'm seeing physical assaults against Jews just for being Jewish.
Or even kosher restaurant.
Restaurants.
I don't understand.
It's
why
an
would you
endless
attack
list.
a kosher restaurant? You have a problem with a challah?
It's dangerous, that
like-
colour,
yeah,
man. I tell you,
literally,
it's,
it's like-
it's a colonial oppressor bread.
It's like that bread, if someone digests it, you have a problem with their stomach. It's like, it's just like, what is the point that you're trying to make?
Well, the point is contrary to what we sing in the Australian national anthem. It is contrary to what you pledge when you become a citizen. When I became a citizen of Australia, I made a pledge to be loyal to every single Australian. And so my message is, although I don't have any political patronage, I'm not representing any government, I'm coming here with my unique vantage point and with my truth, I'm saying that in my humble opinion, the United Arab Emirates is a beacon of light on matters of tolerance, and we really want this shaded palm of tolerance to extend all around the world, and we're coming here together, starting with Australia, and we're going to continue this mission onward.
That's really brilliant.
Did you see how he avoided the government part?
I said I'm going to let you carry
Well,
on.
my tough...
You need a miracle for that.
Yeah, well, that's right. My tough follow-up question is, do you think there's a trade-off between freedom and security for Jewish people and social cohesion? So if the Australian government, there have been discussions to ban Hizb ut-Tahrir, for example, but some people will say, oh no, you can't do that because of freedom of speech. We want people to be able to assemble and express their views freely. But at what point does that actually cross over into hate speech? And then is there then a trade-off between security and freedom?
Someone is telling you, I hate the Jews, kill the Jews, gas the Jews, we don't want them to have a state, nothing. How clear are they going to be about their crime? You're waiting for them to commit the crime? Up to this point, you call it a freedom of speech. When they commit a crime, you're going to call it a crime. They already committed it. What are you going to do then? Put them into prison and spend on their educational system there in the prison and their health and all that? So what's going to happen after that? He already achieved the aim and the purpose of what he believes what he's doing is glorified and what he's doing is great. The point here is it should not be an opinion. Okay, you have a freedom of speech, you have rules and regulations. So did the rules and the regulation of Australia and England and United States of America. It's not a holy book. What happens, they have been reviewed, changed various times for the sake of serving the society and protecting the society. After the 2001, you had various law changes because of the 9/11, even though America is all the way there, Australia is all the way here, but still, you gotta protect your citizens, your nation, and also be part of the international community. But when it comes to this particular case, as if the Jewish community is not given enough to this Australia. They're thriving, they're part of the economic is thriving, the society. I enjoy coming on the east side of Sydney, amazingly it's calm, it's so beautiful, it's so amazing. That nation deserves at least to be said, you know what, if someone tomorrow harms you, rub their shoulder at least. Be there for them, not you do everything for the sake of a vote. Humanity deserves for you to be looking beyond the vote. If you just look for the votes, remember Hitler democratically came into power. And the Muslim Brotherhoods are very dangerous. You will see them as a member of the Parliament of Australia. You will, mark my word, you will see them because they're very smart. And they are intellectual, they have intellectuals there who can dive into, through using the democracy, reaching power, and then use the power to serve certain radicals. You will have lone wolves who will commit a crime. If you allow the mosques right now, as I heard so many of the lectures in the mosques in Australia, and believe it or not, even ISIS would be like, whoa.
It's a bit too radical even for ISIS.
It's very radical. It's in the Middle East. We sit all those sides in the Middle East and we hear Taliban and Iran and all this. And then you look at it and the guy has an accent, Australian Sydney accent, aye. And then in the end of it is like, as if he doesn't live in that civilization, as if he lives in somewhere in a backwarded cave or somewhere, as if he doesn't see the society, the beautiful diversity of the country, of the state, of everything. You can be born and raised, or your ancestors of the family which escaped all the way from the Islamists, the Muslim Brotherhoods, radical groups who were ruling over the Middle East, and your parents came all the way here, and Australia, beautiful country, gave them refuge, gave them everything for you to thrive. Let alone what you're doing right now, you're glorifying the one who kicked out your parents of there, and where your parents run away from that darkness to this light, and you glorify him.
Why? Why do you think that's happening? Because it's not just here, it's happening in Europe, it's happening in the United States, it's happening everywhere in the West.
Yes.
What is going on? What is wrong? Because, yeah.
As you wish.
There is many factors to look into it, and I'll tell you how. Let's go into social media. So social media in the Arab world right now, in the Middle East, 14 hours away from Australia, all the way in the Middle East. This is how people start using the social media. Hold that thought, look into this. 2003, something happens in Israel or in Australia, wherever happens or in the Middle East. People put Al Jazeera on in the Middle East. An Al Jazeera cameraman, just like this cameraman, it doesn't show all of you right now. The cameraman decides exactly what we need to see. At that point, Al Jazeera decided exactly what everyone needs to see in the Middle East. Moving forward, 2024. Al Jazeera put something, and then you go in the Middle East, you go on Snapchat maps. They say Israelis are doing this. Let's move in, zoom in, zoom in. Oh, no, that's an old image. AI will tell you the fabrication of the image, the deception of that image, everything, all that terminologies, and all that facts. And in fact, if you want to see Israelis, the ones who are eating human beings for no reason and all that things that's been told by Al Jazeera, you'd be going on Instagram, no, they're normal human being. Oh my days, they eat the same food, they do the same thing. And these guys, oh my God, there is rockets and they still do parties. What is this, guys? you see a people and a nation that wants to thrive and all these things, and then you go on Google, ask Mr. Google, and Google will tell you, oh my God, there is 10 members of the parliament in Israel, they're Muslim Arabs. Oh my God, they elected democratically by the Arab society, so the Arab society is part of the diversity that Israel exists and so on. That the fact that, and then you go on TikTok and you search, talk to some of the Israeli Arabs, and they tell you, yeah, we have 300 mosques in Israel with 400 imams, paid by the government of Israel. Their salary is being paid for that, and they get purchasing the holy book and so on. In this age, right now, people have access to data in the Middle East, and that's how we utilize it. So when Abu Ubaidah, one of the spokesperson of the Hamas terrorist organization in Gaza, he called the Arab world attack the American affairs and attack any Israeli and Jew. What was the result? Zero. Why? A couple of hundreds in a failure state such as Yemen or Iraq, they protested, speaking to themselves, the mirror of them, like literally. And in the rest of the Arab world, no protest, no nothing. You had more protests in Sydney than in the Arab world. I promise you that. I promise you that. And yeah, and by the way, in some of the countries, you don't dare to raise the flag of Hamas and Hezbollah. I saw pictures in Sydney. And one of the universities, that was crazy.
My university.
Yeah, congratulations. Yeah. It's all your fault.
Taliban flags as well.
So that's what. So there's propaganda. There's
so
a news source.
that's social media.
Yeah.
How we use it in the Middle East.
Yeah.
People who are outside the Middle East, all the way, let's speak about here, Sydney, or even Europe. So they haven't been in the Middle East, they haven't been in Israel, they haven't been in Dubai, they haven't been in Saudi, they haven't been in Egypt, they haven't been. How do they perceive? They perceive the image through the propaganda. Now Hamas and Hezbollah and the Russia and China wants the United States of America and the international community to be busy with the Middle East rather than Taiwan. And Russia wants you to be involved in Gaza and all this thing rather than Ukraine. So what do? They fill as much as they can the propaganda of Hamas and Iran and the proxies of Hezbollah as much as they can. The youngsters, everything, you know, those TikTokers who knows two things, the same thing, watermelon, okay. I like pomegranate more, but okay. Jewish people will be like, yeah, pomegranate. So they consume that propaganda, and that's how it spreads, because you don't have a connection to the Middle East, and then it's been used to paint the picture of the Middle East, of what's happening and all that. And then what happens, you become the hostage of their propaganda. And you will go in the street angry, raising the flag of Hezbollah, and going to her university and think she's the enemy of yours.
How do we make sense of, so that's the propaganda current factor, but if we think about the religious motivation, how does that play into the Islamic concept of jihad and the idea that people here think that to be authentically Muslim, you know, the highest rung on the ladder of piety in Islam is jihad and the extension of a caliphate and the rule of Muhammad, so that everyone will submit to Allah and then peace will come when everyone's submitted. How do you see that playing out here and with propaganda and your
I don't know what
experience?
book they've been reading but in here,
Okay.
but for us, the highest thing we have in our religion is tolerance. And we were taught that the Prophet, peace be upon him, he had a neighbor who was Jewish. And he had a wife, she was Jewish. And we as a Muslim are allowed to marry a Jew woman who can stay on her religion, practice her religion. And when I am allowed to marry a Jewish woman, what does that mean? I'm making a life with her. I'm sharing my soul with her. I'm sharing everything with her. That's love, that's care, that's home, that's building a whole new generation. So it's about the educational system that you perceive and receive and being taught. That's what we have. We have the coexistence. We've been taught coexistence since when you see me here.
Yeah.
Okay, and the language comes from the education. If your educational system it doesn't have that tolerance, and education is not just the books that you read in the schools, it's also the parenthood of yours, the culture of yours, and those Friday and Saturday mosques that you attend, those madrasas here, and here you don't have madrasas, you have the radicalization. You need to work on the system of de-radicalizing the books. There are some books which are accessible here, but for the sake of, so you don't get banned on YouTube, I would not mention the names of those books, but those books were taught by ISIS in Mosul in Iraq and Syria, and they've been printed here.
Yeah, I have a friend at university. This guy came up to our stall at the Sydney University Conservative Club, and he was a Muslim guy from India, and he said the Muslim students group at our university was more radical than anything he ever experienced in his entire life.
I can
So,
tell you that.
is this what's happening? Like, do we
Yeah.
actually have a radicalization issue in Australia that seems worse than the Middle East?
Huge.
And we kind of just don't even
You know what's the
what's
difference?
going on.
You know what's the difference?
What?
There were ties here, that's all.
Ties.
Tie,
Ah,
a suit.
ah.
You have a radical who is wearing a tie and suit. You have Abu
Interesting.
Bakr al-Baghdadi, you have Osama bin Laden, but with a tie and a suit.
Huh.
That studies at your university and is perfectly fine with that.
So what is the end goal of these people though? Is it just to promote radical ideology and then do nothing with it?
That you don't exist. That's what they promote. Yes. And I give you a very simple example of that. And probably some people say, no, Amjad, that's too much. Let's go with one example with this. A protest on weekend. They love doing weekend because they don't want to, their job, their salary is important. So, the cause is not as important as their salary. But yeah, they do it on weekend when they're free, have nothing to do. Doesn't affect their... Anyways. So when they do the weekend protest, but let's go with that activism that they have. So when they have the protest on Saturday or on Sunday, I'm going to use the terminology they use. They love using the following terminologies. They occupy the street for 1 hour. And they settle in it. And once they settle on the street after occupying it, they spread. And once they spread, the next thing they do is divide the community to people who are allowed in and people who are not allowed whatsoever. And the first thing they do, they practice what they attend in that street. They protest for the freedom of others. However, they will prevent others from any freedom of expression in the same place. And you had that case. So that's them occupying the street for 1 hour. And they also prevent you from expressing whatsoever different opinion than theirs. They don't stop there. They use violence against you. So they will attack with the tools they have, the least tools, thank God. They don't have what's available in the US. But they use any tools that they have to commit a crime against you. They don't stop there. They will go and attack the businesses. So even if it's a khala, they have issues with khala, but even if it's just a store that providing just food, they will ask you to force, not by law and order and a dialogue, they force you to boycott that place by force. And they attack businesses. Attacking the businesses, dividing the community, using violence. And this is all in the name of democracy. That's them ruling democratically for 1 hour.
And now I will answer
1
your
hour.
earlier question with the same question you asked. Is that freedom? And I think the issue of freedom, I think it's up to the political leadership to define legislation and governance around freedom. But if I just look at it from my point of view, in Dubai, I can wear a yarmulke, I can wear a Magen David. I can hold a Kristallnacht event. I can hold Independence Day events. I can walk around freely, I can trade freely, and I have no concern for any fear or harassment or intimidation as I conduct my social and commercial life. I think it needs to be reverse engineered. That's the right outcome. This outcome is not the right outcome, so we have to ask ourselves, what are we doing wrong? And that needs to be fixed.
Okay, so here's a question. Here's a hypothetical. I'm Judd. We've taken a vote, and for the next 3 years, you are the president of Australia.
It's okay.
You're the boss, mate.
I'm off.
No. Just it's an example.
I resign.
No, you can't resign. President, you have.
Is there a Labour one? I'm off.
You have 3 years. You're in charge of Australia now. What would you do?
Seriously, I'm not going to do that. Look, Australia has amazing people, and a lot of even politicians who are really great, who are brave enough to at this stage, and they can do a lot, and they can achieve a lot. But I think it's been a challenging time, and again, it needs to be on the scale of morals and values.
Okay, so let me change the question then, because you didn't want to answer that, which is fine.
I'm not taking that position.
Imagine Freya here is Penny Wong,
Foreign Minister.
Foreign Minister.
I'm going. Change. You want to sit there?
And imagine Eitan is Anthony
Does
Albanese.
she read the comments? Because when she tweets, there is comments.
There are comments, yeah, apparently.
Not lovely comments there. It's like,
what advice, and she may listen to this, it's, stranger things have happened. What advice would you give to the Australian political leaders like Penny Wong and Anthony Albanese?
listen to the minorities, sometimes they're right. If you see the Jewish community is a minority, listen to them. It's not about just votes. It's not about being politically right. And maybe sometime you need to listen, if you care about the Middle East, if you do, maybe you need to listen to the successful nations. Maybe you need to listen to someone who is from Dubai or from Bahrain or from Morocco, those successful nations, rather than some, for example, due respect to all, someone who escaped from the civil war of Lebanon and raising the flag of Hezbollah, trying to modernize Hezbollah's ideology to you. Maybe you shouldn't listen to those. Maybe.
Yeah, just an idea. Yeah.
Just a maybe there. But yeah, listen to them before it's late. And let the history recall that you at least did listen. You know, how many times did she speak about the baby cafe?
Let
Probably
me think.
0.
I've not heard her.
Did she speak to the mother of her? The mother is kidnapped too.
And she didn't go down south when she visited Israel. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Okay, so
how many times did she speak about Sudan? She spoke about Gaza. How many times did she speak about Sudan? Tell me why I'm talking about Sudan. Tell me, ask me.
why are you talking about Sudan?
Good question. 15 April 2023, Muslim Brotherhood-led army in Sudan started striking the people in Sudan. They killed how many? Up to the point I'm speaking to you, 80,000 people. What are they? Muslim, Arab. So Muslim lives matter, Arab lives matter. And guess what? They're African, so Black lives matter too. And guess what happened? I didn't see any protest. I didn't see any condemnation or comments from her or others or activists in your university. Why is that? Why? The United Nations said there's 5 million people are starving in Sudan at this moment, and they believe by the end of this year, 200,000 of the children, they will starve, they will die of starvation. What did the international community do for them? Any UNRWA project there? Yeah.
Well, they condemned Israel, and I'm sure that helps.
Yeah.
I mean, crazy, isn't it? Absolutely
So
crazy.
the question is it about human rights and humanity, or is it because something trends and votes are important?
Yeah. Changing tack slightly, how does Saudi Arabia fit into what's happening with Israel and the Abraham Accords and the region?
I think Saudi Arabia is developing quite well, and it's becoming a very open society with its conditions. And the leadership of United Saudi Arabia has made it very clear they have certain conditions to reach the normalization. And MBS had an interview on Fox News where he said they were coming closer and closer to normalization of the state of Israel. And then the 7th of October happened. Many believes in the Middle East that this happened to postpone the normalization.
So I think as we kind of wrap it up and then open it up to the audience for questions, how do you see all this ending? Like 2, 5, 10 years down the line, where is the Middle East headed? Okay,
there is 2 Middle East here, and there is 2 visions in the Middle East. One, for example, UAE. In UAE, we dreamed to reach the Mars. We worked for it, we brought our scientists, we sent them to universities, they studied, they came back, they started learning, they went to NASA, they became part of NASA, members of it. We reached Mars, we achieved it, proud. Okay, we reached, that's a vision. We wanted to reach the Mars. And while we had that vision of trying to reach to Mars, and we reached it there was some other vision. They were digging tunnels to kidnap a baby as 8 months old. 2 different visions in the Middle East. And that's where the Middle East is going. But what I think as a result of what's happening and the elimination of Nasrallah from Hezbollah, which was a beautiful moment in the Middle East, was celebrated among everybody. And in fact, what we heard when Nasrallah was eliminated, we didn't hear it from Israel to start with. We heard it from a mosque in Syria who was calling at night time. Instead of calling for prayer, they were like, celebration time, Nasrallah died. Which was a beautiful moment. And that's the Middle East that you want. There is a common ground and common challenges that is being looked at. And I think it will be thriving more and more towards that. There is more normalization to be seen after post-war. And one of the ways of solving the issues is the fact that we need to de-radicalize. The starting point conversation in the Middle East is not about 2-state, 1-state solution right now. At this stage, it would be de-radicalization. And if we do not de-radicalize Gaza and the West Bank and any other places, then we are going back to square one, and we will have 7th of October 10 years later, 20 years later. We need to go de-radicalize the educational system, which is full of racism towards Judaism and others, and including the Arabs, by the way, in some of the books. And so de-radicalization is a huge stage that should be taking place to build a generation that a leader comes, doesn't think of his pockets only, just like the Alibaba's thieves in the PLOs in Palestinian Authority, and where the Gaza militias exist. But I am very optimistic. The reason why I'm very optimistic for that, because if you put it, some people say, oh, but if you do all this stuff, like for example, the war happened and all that, war against war and all this stuff, people will be like, I have nothing to lose, and I will radicalize. I don't believe that. Japan didn't do this, Germany didn't. Yeah. And in the same time, if you put someone in the prison, the last thing he would do, want to go back to prison. Yeah. So I think the people will find alternatives, and the people back then, they didn't have all this access, where the main thing to him sometimes is a TikTok internet, a good internet connection, for example, right now. A new generation that wants to thrive, entrepreneurs and so many, and they want to find a solution, for example, in even Gaza, in West Bank, have electricity, water, all that stuff. And so it would be the next stage, build and finding the best solution to live in peace and prosperity and diversity and coexist, rather than people of revenge. But I will tell you, you will never hear this in any protest in West Sydney. They will tell you, everything will blow after that, but it won't blow. Yeah.
I think there will be a great day of peace and prosperity. I'm not a political strategist. I'm just a businessman and a philanthropist. I'll answer it with a slightly inspirational twist, going back into history and coming back to a lot of things that Amjad has been saying. But all of my grandparents survived the Holocaust. My one grandmother, at the tender age of 11, her entire family were wiped out in one day. It was a devout Christian family that saved her, that hid her in the chimney. And while they were holding their 6-month-old baby, because Amjad is referring to babies today who are facing the same fate, the parents were holding the baby, and the Nazis murdered the parents while they were holding their 6-month-old baby. My grandmother went on to survive many camps and other things. And today, that family is recognized in Israel, what we call righteous amongst the nation. 27,000 souls that put their lives on the line to stand up for the truth and to save Jews. And I can tell you that my late grandmother worked tirelessly to make sure that they were recognized at Yad Vashem. The reason why I have hope today is because I see in this panel the righteous amongst the nation of this generation. And all of my philanthropic work is centered around embracing the spirit of the Abraham Accords economically and culturally and inspiring a righteous generation. And with more of us, we will get there.
That's brilliant.
We'll sing our final song and take up a collection now. This has been magnificent. Thank you. And I could certainly listen for a long
Your
time.
chairs are so comfortable.
I know. It's clear. We put them there so you wouldn't fall asleep. Well, let's make you. This is like economy at the back.
There's another mitzvah.
It's-
I never tried, but okay, I'll try.
Are there any? Let's. We've got time for some questions. Tali. Yeah.
Thank you all for the work you guys are doing, firstly. I agree with you that
I thought we have an
de-radicalisation-
interview, so.
sharing the love.
Okay.
How do you see the de-radicalization actually taking place? Because of course that is the only way it can happen,
Yeah.
but how? Is it a foreign body? Is it?
Yeah, it will be with the regional, a lot of countries in the region, they need to participate. It can't be even the Gaza or the Western Bank alone. Because you need first a country that has a good tolerance and coexistence, and it can bring the educational system, can give it an example. The first stage of it right now is happening, I think, with the White House with the anti-Semitism that the office that they have. And there is a lot of NGOs also going through a lot of educational curriculum that's happening in Gaza and also in other places. And what is going on is they go in through all the curriculum and see where is the anti-Semitism in it and make sure that's removed and replaced and changed and so on. And there you wait in and teach in a new generation or bring in the new generation that studies peace and understand that you do not, for you to exist, other side need to exist and you need to have a neighbor and you can't just live alone without anybody. And also, de-radicalization doesn't go through the education only, it goes through the culture. Be it even all the way to the graffiti. There shouldn't be a graffiti of martyrdom and kill the Jews and all that stuff. That should all be removed with the flowers and peace and quotes and good stuff there. And so it goes through the media also, the media which is quite anti-Semite, racist towards all and everybody. That will take time. And for those TikTok guys, it's not going to happen next year or 2 years later. Building a nation, building a country, building good outcome takes time.
Brilliant.
Michelle, you had a question.
I have a question. It's
Michelle?
sort of related. Yes, Michelle, nice to meet you.
Michal, they call you in Israel?
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Michal.
It relates to de-radicalisation, and you mentioned the imams in Sydney and what they're preaching. When they quote verses about Jews, and I don't know the difference between Sunni and Shia, but when they're taking actual hadiths or surahs that talk about striking Jews at the neck, I'm really curious as a Muslim.
I don't know where they get this from, but okay.
They quote hadiths or surahs, so they're preaching from religious books.
Okay.
As a Sunni, I'm quite ignorant about this, and I don't want to judge all of Islam, so I would like to know your opinion on how Islam thinks of Jews. It's a big question.
I think I started with this right at the beginning.
Can I actually add to the question, maybe, because it might help for
You joining her?
I'm joining her. I'm joining her.
Okay.
I wonder if it will be helpful for the audience to understand within the Quran, how many times were the Jewish people referenced, the Prophet Muhammad's relationship with the Jewish people, the Prophet Muhammad's relationship with rabbis. I think it might be interesting to color it with that information.
True,
if you
yes,
can
even though I don't want to have it a religious kind of lecture, but in general aspects of it, we have been told that the Jewish people are people of the book and they worship one God. And then we can eat their food. And then we can marry a woman from them. And then she can keep her religion. Do you think I will marry someone that will kill her?
So do we need to de-radicalize the imams first?
Those imams, they shouldn't be in the mosque. They should be in the hospital.
Thank you.
In the hospital, in the prison, they should be brought to justice, because it's very easy. You know, you and I, we all know that. You can even bring a book of philosophy. You know, when Hitler wanted to do all this Nazi ideology and all that, they had a philosophy behind it. They had scientists with them, they had doctors with them, they had people who wrote a book about it, justifying it. So you can even put religion into it, whatever into it. So you can always play with the content and bring it out of the contents. And sometimes it's a story and it's telling you in the Holy Book or the narrations, all the narrations, it's telling you a story that happened on the 7th century. And it's telling you A and B had this issue and that was the result. It's not telling you in 2024, whatever they did, you do it again. It's telling you a story. If you're wise enough, you know exactly what it's telling you a story. This is the result, this is what happened. Now what do? They quote it right there, and yeah, this is what happened back then, we should do the same thing. Me and you probably read the same scientific book, the same mathematics, the same literature, but the way you interpret things are very different than me and you. I went to school, so did Osama bin Laden went to school. I'm here. Well, thank God. They throw him in the water, right?
Yeah, he's somewhere else.
Yeah, he's somewhere else.
There you go. Okay, Ophir, I think you were next.
How do you explain...
Lovely shirt.
Oh, thank you.
Very creative. Don't read it what it says on the camera.
How would you explain to an Australian who want to protect civilian lives in Gaza why UNRWA, why they're not the vessel to make civilian lives and save civilian lives either in Gaza or Lebanon, and why we need to replace and definitely defund them, and how would you rationalize Israel's decision to outlaw them? Because it doesn't make sense in a Westerner's mind how you ban a charity organization for refugees funded and managed by the UN.
What was that question?
How?
I love it.
Why
I
is that?
Teasing you. The United Nations has failed other nations, not just Israel. They failed. Well, what's happening right now? I'm asking you, according to the United Nations, what's happening to the people in the North Korea?
According to them, not a lot.
How many UNRWAs do they have? What is the United Nations doing for the Northern Korean people where there is no electricity? We don't know nothing about them. They eat, they don't eat, how many people die, but what? Nothing, literally nothing. We don't know. That's a human being living all the way there. They even tell them the map looks different. Everything. They have access to nothing. And what did the United Nations do for the Iranian people? And what did the United Nations do for the Ukrainian people right now? Apart from condemnation and statements, how much have they done? If they failed in all these cases, what makes you be so optimistic about them they're going to pass in any case? They failed to bring any, and including even the International Criminal Court, they failed to bring any of the criminals, including Hezbollah's, including Hamas. And some people, they say, well, these guys are not state and all these things, so they can't bring them to justice. Also, the Iranian leader, supreme leader, every year he executes at least 2,000 people. They didn't even bring a case for him. You'd be surprised if he becomes the human rights activist of... And Iran was last year the head of the Human Rights Council. Iran. Even Iran was surprised. Why?
Michael, you had a question.
Yeah, Salam Sadi, amazing presentation. Can you please talk to Qatar and the role that Qatar is playing both within the Gulf but further afield?
I think what's really important, that a lot of countries around the world, including the United States of America, where it has a base, they should start that conversation. And it's really important. Well, let's say the most important country around the world does not raise the voice, and it does not have that power to do so. Others, no matter how much they're going to speak, nothing much is going to happen. The United States of America can make a point, and once it does, the international community will follow up on that. Lobbying comes there. You have the US, and then you have the European Parliament. Maybe the Aussies, they can join. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
So yeah, it starts there.
We, one more question, last question.
Oh, it would just be, you spoke of how in the Middle East it's the Muslim Brotherhood, Hezbollah, ISIS, etc. And in Australia we have the same thing, but we just call it radicals.
No, you call them activists.
Activists.
Human rights activists.
Rather than terrorists.
So, we may hopefully at one point, call certain organisations terrorist organisations, but when people are masquerading as activists who are completely aligned with Muslim Brotherhood, how do we reconcile that? How do we deal with that, which is a moving feat?
I wish I had an answer for this. It's a really hard one. I think there is not one solution for this. Every community and it's your job, if you care about your children, to go there and start speaking to your local MPs and others, to at least study that, what's happening. And do not let them use the terminology, because it actually was created by the Muslim Brotherhood. It's called Islamophobia. So the best way, how they narrate all this radical stuff, and they ask to eliminate all the people from the society and so on. And as soon as you criticize them, they call it Islamophobia. And then they practice radicalism in the name of Islam and so on. So you need to be quite active about this for the sake of your society, to speak to your MPs, lobby through that, and also in the same time start writing about this a lot. Sometimes the problem is the silent majority. They know what's wrong. Yes, you know what, as long as I'm taking care of my family and all this, going to my work, coming back, it's all good. No, it will knock your door like the farmer who was in the kibbutz doing absolutely nothing, caring about its flowers and the garden, and they knocked the door. They were not there to have a tea. They were there to kidnap him, kill his babies, and rape his woman. Thank you.
So that's a cheery note to.
I'm sorry, but
no, it's true. It is absolutely true. So thank you very, very much, Eitan, for your vision of bringing this mission here, and Amjad for coming, for all of you for participating. So we need to build a grassroots movement in Australia that pushes back the terrorists from Islam and pushes back the crazy, useful idiots from the left.
They're not useful.
No, well, that's
they're idiots, but they're not
idiots.
useful. Yeah.
They're useful to the Muslim Brotherhood. That's the problem, right? So we need to push, and we need to build an army. We need to build an army And so this is a very important thing that we're doing. And on my heart, it can't be an army just led by the Jews who feel like they're a tiny, who understand it because you've seen your family killed on the 7th of October. It cannot just be the Jewish community. It has to be the Christian community. It has to be broader Australia. So that's what we're doing. And it's not going to be quick, but we have to win it. Like it's if for our kids and our grandkids. So we're all in. So thank you very much.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you so much.
Thank you for your time.